Senator Seselja.
Thank you, Acting Deputy President. Before I speak in support of this bill today, which I'm very, very pleased to do, I will briefly respond to some of Senator Whish-Wilson's commentary because, I was taken particularly by his comment that free trade deals are about spin, as almost summing up the Greens' policy towards free trade and towards this free trade agreement and other free trade agreements. And I think it's an interesting analysis because we heard from Senator Whish-Wilson saying, there's winners and losers in these deals, and of course one cancels out the other. Not, of course, acknowledging the great enabling potential of free trade to grow the world economy, to grow the Australian economy, as we have seen over decades and in fact over hundreds of years, as trading nations have seen their prosperity rise. So there seems to be this narrow focus where he suggests that it's almost a zero-sum game, that we give up a little bit and we gain a little bit and really nothing changes. Well, that actually ignores the realities of history and ignores how positive free trade has been and trade between nations has been. And for a party, the Greens, whose founder I think talked about one world government, you would think that they would be a little more open to relations with other countries and to trade with other countries, and we should be supporting that. And I think that it's a very small view of the world when we look at that analysis of what is a historic agreement. Can I say, Acting Deputy President, how pleased I am to support these bills and to support the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement. They are landmark bills, and I think that we should acknowledge the great work of Andrew Robb on behalf of the Australian people and the Australian government to get this deal done, and to acknowledge his hard work in helping bring about something which I think will have great positive effects for many, many decades for the Australian economy and for our regional economy as well. And I think that this free trade agreement does set us up for a future of prosperity. It opens up investment and it gives Australian businesses the chance to break free of red tape, but also unnecessary restrictions on trade with one of our most significant trading partners. And the two-way investments we've conducted over the years, of course, play to our strengths. They are complementary, often, our trading relationship. And what's really important, before I get into some of the key numbers, what's really important when you take a step back and look at what this means in our relationship with China. We all know how much we rely on China buying our mineral resources. There's no doubt about that. And that will continue to be an important factor in our economy for many, many years to come. And as we see other nations with an increasing demand, such as India, growing, we will see those type of relationships emerging as well. But what this does, and what this fundamentally does, is as China moves away from that production phase of its economy into a greater consumption phase in its economy with a growing middle class, the demand for services, the demand for high-end goods will be greater and greater, as we see that massive Chinese middle class demanding the kind of things that many of us in the West have been fortunate enough to experience for a long time. And that presents opportunities not just in high-end agriculture and food and other areas, but also, of course, in a wide variety of services exports. And that's the game changer here. We'll continue to export minerals and resources, but services is something Australia does very well. It's underrepresented in our exports, but these kind of free trade agreements to a growing middle class who are demanding those services places Australia in a fantastic position. And if you're talking about diversifying our economy and moving from an over-reliance perhaps on mineral exports, well, this is one way you do it, by growing your services sector, by growing your services exports. And that is fundamentally what this deal represents. So when you look at the Australia-China trade, you see total exports of $107.5 billion, total imports of $52.1 billion, total two-way trade of $159.6 billion, which is a 23.8% share of Australia's total trade. So a quarter of our trade is in this relationship with China. Top 5 exports, of course, as I said, to China. Iron ore and concentrates 57 billion, coal 9.3 billion, gold 8.1. But interesting, education-related travel services $4.1 billion, and then copper $2.1 billion. Top 5 imports from China: clothing $5.1 billion, telecommunications equipment and parts $4.9 billion, computers $4.8 billion, furniture, mattresses and cushions $2.2 billion, prams, toys, games and sporting goods $1.8 billion. And the Australia-China investment scenario: Australia's investment stock in China is $29.6 billion. China was the 12th largest destination for Australian investment abroad in 2013, and of course this will grow. China's investment in Australia, $31.9 billion. China was the 8th largest source of investment in Australia in 2013. And of course that's an important point to pause on again, because we have historically relied on foreign capital. We have historically relied on foreign capital as a low population, large land mass economy. We have needed a lot of foreign capital to help grow our economy, to help exploit our resources, and of course Chinese investment is a part of that mix, and an important part of that mix. So CHAFTA will unlock significant opportunities for Australia. China is Australia's largest export market for both goods and services, accounting for nearly a third of total exports, and a growing source of foreign investment. Tariffs of up to 19% on all dairy products will be phased out completely on things like infant formula, liquid milk and manufactured products. Tariffs on beef and lamb of up to 25% will also be progressively eliminated. All vegetable, fruit and nut tariffs will be eliminated, as well as wine tariffs ranging from 14% to 30% to be phased out over 4 years. Australia's tourism sector is set to benefit from CHAFTA through encouraging investment in Australia, making it easier for Chinese students to study in Australia. A work and holiday arrangement concluded alongside CHAFTA will allow 5,000 Chinese work and holiday makers into Australia annually, increasing demand for tourism services and supporting the development of the sector. Importantly, these benefits flow both ways. As we invite investment, we'll also have the opportunity to export into China without unnecessary red tape holding up the process and without unnecessary costs. And I should say that as we see tariffs come down, of course, there are benefits for consumers as well. So there's benefits for producers, there's benefits for jobs and people seeking employment in Australia, but of course, as we've seen it with other free trade agreements that are being concluded, we see benefits for consumers, and surely that's something we should be in the business of promoting. Now, earlier this year I had the great pleasure of participating in a seminar with small business owners from the Canberra region to discuss and learn about the historic free trade agreements the Coalition Government has delivered in the last 2 years. Around 130 interested small business owners attended the event, which was hosted by then Small Business Minister Bruce Bilson. Now, the economy of Canberra and the local region thrives on the success of these businesses, and that seminar helped create some additional tailwind for those businesses who are considering international markets. Those of you in this place who come from the far-flung corners of Australia may not realise just what a vibrant small business sector we have here in Canberra and in our region. We've got wineries and gourmet food, tourism, retail, as well as a strong focus on education, finance and other service industries. And the China Free Trade Agreement benefits all of these industries. In particular, it's easy to look at the billions of dollars of value in our trade with China and think this is just the realm of big businesses. It's not. This is an agreement for small businesses and medium businesses as well. This is an agreement that helps small businesses enter new markets. They can look beyond our shores and find new buyers and new investments. And when small businesses take these opportunities, build wealth and grow, everyone benefits. Trade promotes growth and raises incomes, gives consumers and business greater choice, makes products cheaper, it encourages innovation. These agreements extend the open trading environment in which traders and investors operate. They make exporting a more attractive prospect by guaranteeing new levels of access to these markets. This is the case whether you are large or small, whether you have 10 or 10,000 staff. And as I was hearing the arguments put forward by the Honourable Senator Whish-Wilson in relation to this, you cast your mind back to some of the great debates we've had in relation to free trade in the past. You cast your mind back to those arguing against abolishing tariffs or reducing tariffs. Now, there's always a strong argument. There's always an argument you can make to say, well, someone might be worse off. Would anyone want to go back? Would anyone want to go back to Australia behind the tariff wall? Is anyone seriously arguing that that would be a better place for us to be as a nation? Well, I certainly wouldn't support that, and I don't think many in this place would, and I don't think many in the community would, because they've seen the benefits. That high level of protectionism that we saw led to inefficient industries. It led to high costs for consumers, and actually, of course, both sides of politics have seen reductions in that tariff wall. So, I'm always reminded of that when I hear some of the, relatively small-minded criticisms of this free trade agreement and of free trade more broadly. Those arguments were made loud and clear during the 80s and 90s as we were seeing these kind of reforms. But is anyone seriously going to come into this place and argue we should go back? We should go and construct a tariff wall again? Now, during the small business, during some of the small business access we've had, and at that seminar, one of the small business owners I had the pleasure of meeting was Michael Tare of Wild Bear Entertainment. Now, Wild Bear are a great example of a modern, innovative 21st century small business, taking advantage of globalised technology and, importantly, ready to reap the benefits of the China Free Trade Agreement. Wild Bear is a factual entertainment company working in television, theatre, corporate, educational and government communications. Wild Bear was formed after the merger of two Australian production companies, Wild Fury and Bear Cage. Now, Michael is a Canberra local who built Bear Cage into a formidable production house, producing award-winning television and commercial productions. His credits included building Australia on the History Channel, The Digger, which won the Gold Dolphin at the Cannes Film and Television Awards, as well as a number of other TV documentaries. Now, with all of this success, Michael has been able to expand his productions, working with networks in the USA, the UK, Germany, France, Sweden, and importantly in relation to this bill, China. And Michael produced a 6-part documentary called The Story of Australia for Chinese TV in 2012. It earned an audience of over 21 million people and was praised by President Xi, who cited it as an example of the close relations between China and Australia. Michael told me that China's media market is unsurprisingly highly regulated and complex. He said it took his company a long time to navigate and understand how the media environment worked. Simplifying the regulations for travel, visas and business transactions will make this work a lot easier for Wild Bear's future productions. While there will always be intellectual property laws to navigate across two different countries, breaking down some of the barriers will create more opportunities, not just for companies like Wild Bear, but for so many others who are in the service sector, who are in the innovation sector, and who will have the opportunity to thrive. And it's important to remember that small businesses, adaptable and innovative, will have greater chances to grow under this agreement. Now, one of the Canberra region's key overseas export markets is, as many here would know, the wine industry. We have a sensational wine industry, around 30 wineries operating in and around the ACT, and many of these wineries have produced world-class award-winning wines. Over the next 4 years, through the China Free Trade Agreement, we'll see the 14% to 20% tariffs on wine progressively removed. This will give our world-class wineries even more opportunities to break into the booming Chinese wine market. More broadly, in rural Australia, they too will benefit from the removal of wine tariffs, but also the benefits of the progressive removal of tariffs on beef, sheep meat and wool. Each of these products carry tariffs ranging from 12% to 25%. And over the next 8 to 9 years, we'll see the end of these tariffs. Already our agriculture is moving into the Chinese market and creating more and more wealth. This will only continue with this agreement. For horticulture, we'll also see tariffs being removed. But I come back, having touched on some of those agricultural exports, I come back to the services industry, financial services, legal services, education, aged care. Australia is world-class in these areas, and this agreement is a major breakthrough for us to have the opportunity to export those high-class services to what will be the world's biggest economy and certainly the world's biggest middle class in China, who will more and more have an appetite for our services and our high-quality goods. Now, we are pleased it must be said we are pleased that we now will have bipartisan support for this agreement. I think that is important, and I think it's important that, notwithstanding, as I say, the contribution we had from the Greens, who are still singing from the union song sheet on this, that we have seen some progress from the Labor Party, and we hope that will continue. We hope that they'll distance themselves from some of the union scare campaigns in relation to this free trade agreement. That will be an important test of leadership. We are pleased that they've come on board and we've been able to negotiate a deal. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing when we get agreement on such major things between the two major parties of government. I think that is actually very important for confidence and for a range of other things. So we are pleased with that. But the union scare campaign is dishonest. The union scare campaign should be condemned because what it's doing is painting a misleading picture of what this agreement means. And of course, we know that Labor figures, and before federal Labor came on board, we know that there were Labor figures from across the board, whether there's premiers like Daniel Andrews and Jay Weatherill, former Prime Minister Bob Hawke, former Foreign Minister Bob Carr, former leader Simon Crean, Martin Ferguson, former Premier John Brumby, former Premier Beattie. There's been a chorus of voices on both sides of politics for this agreement. So it is important. It is important that we call out the scare campaigns for what they are. They are dishonest. This has been thoughtfully negotiated, carefully negotiated over many years, and it has been done in a way with two fundamental goals in mind: to grow trade between our two nations whilst protecting Australia's vital interests. And Andrew Robb has balanced that very well, and he has done that in a way that is in the national interest. That is absolutely in the national interest. So, in conclusion, Acting Deputy President, I think this is an agreement we should be very proud of. It's been a long time coming. These are not easy. I again would like to congratulate Andrew Robb and all those in the government who have been responsible for negotiating this deal. We can't close ourselves off from the world. We can't pretend that the world economy isn't always evolving, and that we need to respond to that. And we do need to respond to that. And one of the ways we respond to that is by making sure that we break down some of the artificial barriers, that nations put up between themselves that stifle trade. Now, there are always those who will say that any change is going to be negative and that we should argue against it. But as I say, we heard those same arguments. We heard those same arguments put forward as we saw the debate about opening up Australia to the world, about lowering the tariff wall. And, whilst the Greens might want to go back there, I don't want to go back there. And I don't think the Australian people want to go back there. The Australian people don't want to go back to the 1970s when we had an uncompetitive economy. We tried to close ourselves off from the world. We raised the barriers. We forced low and middle income earners to pay far more than they had to for goods. Far more than they had to for goods because of a closed shop. It wasn't good for the economy, it wasn't good for consumers, in the end it wasn't good for workers. It wasn't good for workers except a select few who were being subsidised by everyone else. And those are the facts of the matter. So, this argument that we're hearing, and we're even getting in interjections as we go forward from the Greens, who would like to take us back there, we disagree with that. We reject that. We reject that. Yeah, and I hear Senator McKim, and he's saying, if we have free trade, we don't have sovereignty. We're not protecting our sovereignty. Well, it's a rubbish argument.
I would ask that you give Senator Seselja the opportunity to complete his remarks in silence. Senator Seselja.
Thank you very much, Acting Deputy President. And the same arguments, as I say, that were made by those who are anti-free trade in the 70s and 80s are now being made by the Greens and the union movement in relation to this free trade agreement. Those arguments were false then. Those arguments are false now. They ignore the outstanding benefits.
Sorry, Senator Seselja. Sorry, Senator Heffernan. Didn't realise you're in your seat. Point of order?
Absolutely. Clarify something here. In the likes of free trade agreements, and the international tax arrangements,
Doesn't sound like
there's a real risk
Senator Heffernan,
of sovereignty being...
what is your point of order, Senator?
Well, I'm not going to let someone get away with bullshit.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Senator Heffernan. I'll take that as a statement. Senator Seselja with 26 seconds to go.
I should have included Senator Heffernan with the Greens on this particular point.
Senator
I should have
Heffernan,
included
order.
him with them, but I don't think that was a point of order, Acting Deputy President.
There's no point of order.
No, clearly.
I did rule it was a statement.
I would lump them together on this particular point, but I would just say that ignores the reality of what free trade has achieved for the Australian economy, for the world economy over decades and indeed centuries, and I therefore commend these bills to the Senate.